The hall was not meant for anything special that afternoon. It was just another public space people walked through every day. Some came to rest, some to escape the heat, and some simply passed by without looking around. In one corner of the hall stood an old piano. Its black surface was scratched and dull, and many believed it had lost its voice long ago. Children sometimes pressed its keys for fun, and cleaners wiped dust off it without much care. No one expected anything meaningful to come from it anymore. The woman entered quietly. She did not announce herself. She did not look around to see who was watching. She carried no bag, no music sheets, no sign that she belonged there. Her clothes were simple and clean, but worn from use. They told a story of long days and hard work, not of stages or applause. Her shoes made soft sounds as she walked, careful not to disturb anyone. A few people noticed her at first, but only for a moment. She looked like many others who passed through the hall every day. Some thought she might be a worker on break. Others assumed she was waiting for someone. No one imagined she had come for the piano. She stopped near it and stood still. Her eyes rested on the keys as if she was greeting an old friend. There was no rush in her movements. Time seemed slower around her. A guard nearby glanced at her but said nothing. A couple of teenagers sitting on the floor whispered and laughed, guessing she would press a few notes and leave. The hall was filled with normal sounds. Footsteps echoed. Someone coughed. A phone rang somewhere. Life continued as usual. She reached out and lifted the piano bench slightly, adjusting it so it would not shake. That small action caught a few eyes. People began to wonder why she cared so much about sitting properly. Still, no one spoke. When she finally sat down, her back was straight, but not stiff. She placed her hands on her lap and took a deep breath. It was the kind of breath people take before doing something important. Though no one recognized it at the time, her fingers moved slowly toward the keys, stopping just above them. Someone nearby muttered that she was probably about to try her luck. Another person shrugged and went back to scrolling on their phone. A child tugged at their parent's sleeve. Curious, she pressed the first key gently. The sound was soft, almost fragile. It was not impressive. It did not turn heads right away. She followed with a few more notes, simple and familiar. It sounded like a basic tune many people had heard before. A few listeners smiled politely, thinking it was sweet, but nothing more. At first, the hall remained restless. People continued walking. Conversations did not stop. Some even felt disappointed, as if they had hoped for something more exciting. But the woman did not seem affected. Her face remained calm. Her eyes stayed focused on the keys, not on the people. She played as if she were alone. The tune moved slowly, almost carefully, like someone testing the ground before taking a step. Each note was clear, even if it was simple. There were no mistakes, no shaking hands, no signs of nervousness. That alone began to feel unusual. A man standing near the entrance paused for a moment longer than planned. He listened without knowing why. The rhythm felt steady, honest. It carried something warm, something personal. The woman's shoulders relaxed as she continued. It was clear she was not guessing her way through the tune. She knew it deeply. She had played it many times before, perhaps in places no one would ever see. Kitchens, small rooms, quiet nights. Places where music was not meant to impress, only to survive. The piano responded to her touch in a way it had not done for years. The notes sounded fuller, as if the instrument itself was waking up. Even the worn keys seemed to shine under her fingers. A few people now stood still. They did not realize when they stopped moving. They just listened. The tune remained simple, but it carried emotion. It did not rush. It did not try to prove anything. That made it powerful in its own quiet way. Someone whispered that she was actually good. Another person nodded without speaking. The laughter from earlier had faded. Phones were lowered. The woman's hands moved smoothly, with control and care. She was not showing off. She was telling something without words. A sense of calm spread through the hall. The usual noise softened. Even the footsteps grew slower. No one clapped. No one interrupted. It felt too early for that. The music was still unfolding. As she played the last note of the simple tune, she let it linger. The sound faded slowly into the air. For a brief moment, there was silence. Some thought that was the end. They expected her to stand up, smile shyly, and walk away. But she did not move. Her fingers stayed on the keys. Her eyes closed for a second. It was a small pause, but it felt heavy, full of meaning. The hall waited, without knowing why. That pause marked the end of something ordinary, and the beginning of something no one was prepared for. And in that quiet moment, Before anything truly changed, the woman seemed completely at peace, as if she had finally been heard, even if only by herself. The silence after the last simple note felt longer than it really was. People did not realize they were holding their breath. The woman still sat at the piano, her hands resting lightly on the keys. Her eyes were closed, as if she was listening to something no one else could hear. A few steps away, someone shifted their weight, unsure whether to clap or move on. Another person glanced at their watch. Life tried to return to normal, but something held it back. Then her fingers moved again. This time, the sound was different. It was still soft, but it carried more confidence. The notes flowed with purpose, no longer careful, no longer testing. The tune changed shape, turning slightly deeper, slightly faster. It felt like the same song, but seen from another angle. People noticed the change without fully understanding it. A woman near the wall lowered her phone and focused. A man who had been halfway out the door stopped and leaned against the frame. Even the guard straightened his posture. The woman's face remained calm, but her hands told a stronger story now. They moved with ease, sliding from one note to the next. The piano responded clearly, as if it had been waiting for this kind of touch. The music began to fill the hall in a way it had not before. It reached corners it never reached during careless tapping or short performances. It wrapped itself around the space, pulling people in. Someone whispered that the piano had never sounded like this. Another person nodded, eyes fixed on the moving hands. The woman did not look up. She did not search for approval. She played for the moment, for the sound, for something deeper than the room itself. The rhythm grew stronger. The notes gained weight. What started as a simple melody now carried layers. It felt like a quiet story unfolding, one part at a time. A child sat down on the floor without being told. A couple standing nearby moved closer. No one wanted to miss what might come next. The music was still gentle, but there was fire hidden inside it, like calm water hiding a strong current. Those who listened closely could feel it building. The woman's shoulders lifted slightly as she leaned into the piano. Her fingers pressed harder now, not roughly, but with intention. Each note landed where it was meant to. Some people felt something shift inside them. They did not know why their chest felt tight or why their eyes felt warm. The tune reminded them of long days, quiet hopes, and things left unsaid. The hall, once filled with noise and movement, had become still. Even the air felt heavier. The music paused for just a second, like a question hanging in the air. Then everything changed. Her hands moved faster. The soft flow turned bold. The notes rose and fell with strength. The piano's voice grew louder, clearer, more alive than anyone remembered. A sudden energy filled the room. Heads turned sharply. People who had been walking stopped completely. The sound demanded attention. The woman's calm face now showed focus. Her brows lowered slightly, not in anger, but in deep concentration. This was no longer a quiet tune meant for herself. This was something meant to be heard. The music climbed higher, faster. It carried confidence, pain, joy, and release all at once. It felt like years of silence breaking open. Someone gasped softly. Another person covered their mouth in disbelief. The piano keys moved under her hands like they belonged there. There was no hesitation, no fear. Every note came with certainty. The hall seemed smaller now, as if the music had pulled everyone closer together. People exchanged looks, silently asking the same question. Where did she come from? The woman's foot pressed the pedal with care, letting the sound stretch and echo. The notes blended, creating waves that rolled through the room. The piano, once ignored, now felt like the center of everything. A man who had laughed earlier stood frozen, his smile gone. His eyes were wide, fixed on the performer. The music slowed slightly, then surged again. It was no longer just sound. It was emotion, raw and honest. Some listeners felt chills run down their arms. Others felt their heart race. The woman's movements grew stronger, more fearless. Her hands crossed, climbed, and fell with precision. She was no longer playing a tune. She was claiming the space. The hall responded in silence, a deep, respectful silence that held every note. People forgot about time, forgot about where they were supposed to be. The woman did not notice any of this. Or maybe she did, and simply did not care. Her world had narrowed to the keys beneath her fingers. The music dipped again, becoming softer, almost tender. It felt like a memory whispered in the dark. Some thought the peak had passed. They relaxed slightly. But the fire was not finished. Her hands suddenly struck the keys with new force. The sound burst forward, powerful and full. The piano sang in a voice no one knew it had. The hall felt the impact. The music echoed off the walls, bold and unashamed. A few people stepped back, stunned by the strength of it. The woman's posture was strong now, her back straight, her head lifted just a little. She was fully present. This was not practice. This was not chance. This was skill earned through countless unseen hours. The music surged higher, faster, brighter. It carried struggle and victory side by side. Listeners felt like they were being pulled into her story. Even though no words were spoken, some felt tears rise without warning. The final notes of this powerful section rang out, sharp and clear. They cut through the air and settled deep in the chest. When she paused again, the silence was louder than before. No one moved. No one breathed. The hall was no longer just a place people passed through. It had become a witness, and everyone knew, without saying it out loud, that what they were hearing was only the beginning. The silence after the last powerful note did not break right away. It hung in the air, thick and heavy, like the room itself was trying to understand what had just happened. People stood frozen, afraid that even a small movement might disturb whatever was taking shape in front of them. The woman remained seated. Her hands hovered above the keys, not touching, not pulling away. Her breathing was steady, but deeper now. This was not the end. Everyone could feel it. Then she lowered her hands again. The next sound did not rush forward. It arrived slowly, carefully. A deep note rolled out first, strong and steady. It felt grounded, like feet planted firmly on the earth. Then another followed, and another, building a new path. This part of the music was different from before. It carried weight. It felt older, wiser. The fiery energy from earlier had not disappeared, but it had changed into something more controlled, more confident. The woman's fingers moved with purpose. Each note landed exactly where it needed to be. There was no wasted motion, no hesitation. People leaned in without realizing it. Their bodies followed the sound. A man near the back wiped his eyes quickly, embarrassed by the sudden emotion. A woman beside him placed a hand on her chest, trying to slow her breath. The piano's sound filled every corner now. It was no longer just music in a room. It felt like the room existed for the music. The woman's face showed focus, but also something softer. Peace, maybe, or release. It was as if she had been carrying this sound inside her for years, waiting for the right moment to let it out. The notes grew richer, layered with feeling. Some were heavy with struggle, others lifted gently, offering hope. People began to understand that this was not a lucky moment. This was not a hidden trick. This was deep skill, shaped by time. A few listeners exchanged quiet looks. They all felt the same thing. Respect. The music slowed again, pulling the hall into a calm that felt almost unreal. Even the building seemed to listen. The woman leaned closer to the piano, her head lowering slightly. Her hands softened their touch, drawing out a tender sound. This part felt personal, like a memory being shared. Some listeners thought of their own lives. Long nights, missed chances, dreams pushed aside. The music spoke without asking permission. Then, slowly, the rhythm began to rise again. Not fast, not loud, just steady. The woman's fingers picked up speed, weaving through the keys with quiet strength. The melody grew brighter, stronger, more sure of itself. The piano responded with clarity. Each note rang clean and true. People felt their hearts lift along with the sound. This was no longer about surprise. It was about belief. The woman's posture straightened, her shoulders squared. She was fully in control now. The music expanded, filling the hall with warmth and power at the same time. It felt balanced, complete. Listeners stopped thinking about who she was or where she came from. Those questions no longer mattered. All that mattered was what she was giving them. The rhythm became more complex, yet never messy. Fast runs flowed into deep chords. Light touches blended with bold strikes. Some people smiled without realizing it. Others felt tears fall freely now, no longer trying to hide them. The woman's hands moved as if the piano were an extension of her body. Every movement felt natural. There was confidence in the way she played, but no arrogance. No need to prove anything. This was someone who knew her worth. The music reached another rise, not explosive like before, but strong and wide. It wrapped around the listeners, holding them. The hall felt united. Strangers shared the same breath, the same emotion. The woman pressed the pedal, letting the sound stretch and blend. The notes echoed, layered and full. A quiet joy filled the space. The music softened once more, gently stepping back. It felt like the end of a long journey approaching, but still, she did not stop. Her fingers danced lightly now, almost playful. The tune smiled. People felt relief, warmth, gratitude. Then, Without warning, the tempo shifted again. The woman's hands moved faster, sharper. The sound grew bold, alive with confidence. This was not fire fueled by anger or struggle. This was fire born from freedom. The piano sang loudly now, proudly. The hall vibrated with energy. Listeners sat up straighter. Their eyes followed every movement. The woman's expression showed strength and joy together. She was no longer holding back any part of herself. The music surged forward, climbing higher, brighter, unstoppable. People felt their hearts race. This was the sound of someone stepping fully into who they were meant to be. The final run of notes in this section came fast and clean, rolling like a wave. Then she slowed. The sound settled. The last note rang out, long and steady, filling the space before slowly fading away. When it disappeared, the silence returned. But this silence felt different. It was full. No one moved. No one spoke. They all knew they had crossed a line together, from witnessing something impressive to experiencing something unforgettable. And as the woman sat quietly at the piano, her hands resting at her sides, the truth became clear to everyone present. She was not just playing music, she was revealing herself, and the hall would never feel the same again. The silence did not break right away. It stretched longer than anyone expected, as if the hall itself was holding its breath. People looked around, unsure of what to do next. No one wanted to be the first to move, the first to speak, the first to end the moment. The woman stayed seated at the piano. Her hands rested loosely in her lap now, her shoulders slowly lowered, as if she had just put down something heavy she had been carrying for a long time. She did not look up. She did not search the room. She simply sat there, calm and still. A soft sound came from somewhere in the crowd. It was a single clap. It surprised everyone, including the person who made it. Then another clap followed, then another. The sound grew, uneven at first, scattered across the hall. People hesitated, unsure if it was right, unsure if it was enough. Within seconds, the hesitation disappeared. The hall filled with applause. It rose fast, loud and full, echoing off the walls. People clapped with their whole hands now, some standing without realizing it. Others let out quiet cheers, unable to hold them back. The woman finally lifted her head. Her eyes met the crowd for the first time. There was surprise in her face, but not shock. It was the look of someone who did not expect praise, yet accepted it with honesty. Her lips pressed together slightly, as if she was trying to keep her emotions steady. The applause continued. It did not fade. It grew stronger. Some people nodded toward her with respect. Others wiped their eyes openly now, no longer caring who saw. A few stepped closer to the piano, drawn in by something they could not explain. The woman stood slowly. She did not rush. She placed one hand on the piano, almost as if to thank it, then turned to face the room fully. She bowed her head just a little, not a grand bow, just enough to say she understood. The applause softened, then slowly faded. For a brief moment, no one spoke. Then voices began to rise. People whispered questions to each other. Where did she learn to play like that? Why had no one heard her before? Was she trained? Was she famous? The woman heard none of it, or chose not to respond. She stepped back from the piano, giving it space, as if the moment belonged to the music, not to her. A man near the front spoke up, his voice unsure but sincere. He thanked her. Others nodded, adding quiet words of praise. She smiled gently, a small smile that reached her eyes. It was not the smile of someone seeking attention. It was the smile of someone relieved. More people gathered around now. The hall no longer felt like a place of passing footsteps. It felt like a shared space, connected by what had just happened. Someone asked her if she played professionally. She paused before answering. Her voice, when it came, was soft and steady. She said she played whenever she could. That was all. The answer surprised some, disappointed others. But it felt honest. Another person asked why she chose that piano. In that hall, on that day, she looked back at the piano for a moment. Her eyes softened. She said it was there, and so was she. That seemed to be enough. People absorbed her words quietly. No one pushed for more. A few listeners shared their own feelings aloud. One said the music reminded them of home. Another said it gave them courage they did not know they needed. The woman listened carefully. She nodded, grateful, but never tried to take credit for their emotions. The hall slowly returned to sound. Footsteps resumed. Phones buzzed. Life crept back in. But something had changed. People walked differently now, slower, more aware. The woman remained near the piano, speaking with those who approached her. She answered kindly, Briefly, always with respect, a young person asked if she could play again. She hesitated, then nodded. The crowd quieted quickly, as if the room remembered what to do. She returned to the bench and sat once more. This time, there was no doubt, no judgment in the air, only trust. She placed her hands on the keys and began again. But softer now. The music felt like a conversation, gentle and open. People listened with ease. There was no need for surprise anymore. The pressure was gone. The woman played a short piece, calm and warm. It felt like a thank you. When she finished, the applause returned, but this time it was different. It was steady, deep, full of respect. She stood again and stepped away from the piano. Some people moved aside to let her pass. Others smiled as she walked by. A few tried to stop her, to ask more questions, to hold on to the moment. She thanked them quietly and continued walking. As she reached the edge of the hall, she paused and looked back once more. The piano stood there, silent again, but no longer forgotten. People remained nearby, talking softly, replaying the experience in their minds. The woman took a deep breath and stepped forward outside the hall. The world moved as it always had. Cars passed. Voices filled the air. Nothing looked different. But inside her, something had shifted. She walked with a lighter step now. Her shoulders were relaxed. Her face calmed. She did not know if this moment would change her life. She did not think that far ahead. What mattered was that she had played, she had been heard, and for a brief time, strangers had listened, truly listened, behind her. The hall slowly returned to normal. People went their separate ways, but long after the piano fell quiet, the feeling remained. It lingered in the air, in the walls, in the hearts of those who had been there. And even as the woman disappeared into the crowd, one truth stayed behind. The music had left its mark, not loudly, not proudly, but deeply, and nothing about that place would ever feel quite the same again. The days that followed did not feel dramatic. There were no sudden calls, no bright lights, no quick promises. Life moved at its usual pace. People went back to work. The hall returned to its normal routine. The piano sat quietly again, just as it always had. But something invisible had changed. Those who had been there that day carried the moment with them. They spoke about it in low voices, often starting with simple words. They said they heard something special. They said a stranger played the piano and made them feel something real. They struggled to explain it fully, because it was not just about the sound. It was about how it made them stop and feel. The woman returned to her daily life as well. She woke up early, followed her routine, and moved through the world without expecting attention. Nothing around her looked different. The streets were the same. The faces passed by just as quickly. Yet inside her, something felt lighter. She noticed it in small ways, in how she breathed, in how her steps felt steadier, in how silence no longer felt heavy. She did not replay the applause in her mind. She did not imagine a future shaped by praise. She remembered the music itself, the feeling of the keys under her fingers, the moment when sound filled the hall and she no longer felt alone. That was what stayed with her. One evening, she passed by the same hall again. She had not planned to stop. Her path simply led her there. She stood at the entrance for a moment, watching people move in and out. The piano was visible from where she stood. Someone was sitting near it, not playing, just resting. She felt no pressure, no need to return to the bench, no urge to prove anything. She smiled quietly and continued walking. The hall did not belong to her, and she did not belong to it. The moment they shared had been enough. Elsewhere, a young listener from that day sat at home, tapping fingers against a table, remembering the sound. They searched for old sheet music and opened a dusty keyboard that had not been touched in years. Another listener, tired from long work hours, played soft music in the background for the first time in months, choosing calm instead of noise. A guard who had stood nearby told someone close to him that he had seen something rare. He said it reminded him to pay attention. None of these changes were loud. None were shared online in big ways. But they were real. The music had moved quietly, settling into lives without asking for credit. The woman continued to play in her own spaces, at home, in quiet rooms. In moments where no one watched, sometimes, she thought about the hall, not with longing, but with gratitude. She knew now that being seen once was enough to remind her of who she was. Weeks passed. One afternoon, someone she barely knew asked her if she played music. The question came casually, without expectation. She paused, then answered simply. She said yes. The word felt different this time, stronger, true. She was not claiming a title. She was accepting a truth. Music had always been part of her life, even when no one noticed. Now, she no longer needed proof from others. That quiet confidence changed how she carried herself. She listened more, she spoke with ease, she trusted her own voice. Back at the hall, the piano was treated with more care. People wiped its keys gently. Children were asked not to bang on it. Someone tuned it. Just a little. No sign explained why. Those who knew. Sometimes, someone would sit and try to play. The sound was never the same, but the space felt welcoming. The hall had learned how to listen. On a calm afternoon, a soft tune drifted through the room. Not fiery, not perfect, just honest. A few people stopped to listen. The woman was not there, but her presence remained. She did not become famous. She did not chase stages. Her life did not turn into a story told loudly. Instead, it became steady. She played when she needed to feel grounded. She shared music when it felt right. She rested when she needed silence. That one moment had not changed her world. It had clarified it. She understood now that talent did not need permission. It only needed space. And sometimes, that space appeared unexpectedly, in an ordinary hall, on an ordinary day. The people who had listened learned something too. They learned to pause, to give strangers a moment, to let simple things unfold. They learned that wonder does not always arrive announced. Sometimes, it sits quietly, waiting to be noticed. The piano remained where it always had been, but it was no longer ignored, and neither was the truth it revealed. That extraordinary things can live inside ordinary people. That sound can change a room. That listening can change a life. And that sometimes, the most powerful moments do not ask to be remembered. They simply stay. Long after the last note fades, long after the hall grows quiet, long after the woman walks on, the echo remains. Not in the walls, but in the hearts of those who were willing to hear it.